Nick O'Hearn and Mark Allen with some Talk Birdie To Me bonus content.
So, Nick, is it what is it? The 120th, 122nd? Which one is it? US Open.
You were very close. Number 123.
123rd US Open at LA Country Club, and I'm as excited about this one just because of the course as I would be for a Pebble Beach US Open, which we're going to see next week with the girls, which is it next week?
No, it's
a couple of weeks, is it?
Couple of weeks. Actually, they've got back-to-back majors coming up, the Women's PGA, then the US Open.
That's unusual in the world of sport, isn't it? It is very unusual the way the girls do it, but more power to them. It's great. Get a couple of majors away 1 week after another. The golf course, the more I see it, Nick, the more I'm falling in love with this place. I saw Gil Hans talking about the changes that he'd made and some of the reasoning that he'd made them. The sixth hole, the 15th, the little par 3 that might play at 90 yards, so 80 metres.
It might play at 80 yards, I've heard.
Or 72 metres. So, I mean, I can't wait to see what happens there. Look, I don't know. I've never played the course. I know a few people who have played the course.
Yep.
They've always walked away saying it's fantastic, but I had no idea it was like this.
Yeah, it's right in the middle of LA too. That's the most bizarre thing. The Playboy Mansion is on the golf course.
On the golf course.
On about one of the back 9 holes, or maybe the front 9 holes, actually. Might be the 4th or something like that. But it's been 75 years since LA has hosted a major.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? The last one was 1948, Ben Hogan.
Yeah.
Do you know where?
So hang on, John Rahm won one in California, but not Los Angeles. Exactly what you're saying.
Los Angeles, yes.
So San Diego is where Torrey Pines is. So it's about an hour and a half away. But you're exactly right. I hear some people talking about it's like Central Park, but it's golf. The way it's all set up. So it's sensational.
Yeah, the course is incredible. It's the North course. There's North and South, obviously. George Thomas, the designer. It's past 7,400, just over 7,400 yards, bent greens, Bermuda rough. That's going to be very interesting. We've seen a lot of pictures and talk about that rough. They've been dropping balls early in the week into the rough, but they always do that.
They always do.
Every major, and then as the week goes on. The thing that fascinates me about the course is these wispy bunkers around the greens and the fescue grass and how thick that is. That's going to be very tricky. And the other part about the bunkers, sand is very soft.
Yeah.
So the players are going, if you're in a fairway bunker here, this is a real penalty because it's going to be hard to make good contact. And then around the greens, in very soft sand, that tends to be a little grainier, I guess you could say, and very hard to get spin on the ball in that regard. So I don't think they'll be spinning the ball too much out of the bunkers.
So if you have been lucky enough to play there, what I keep being told is that they have filled these bunkers with sand. So to what you're saying, so normally the sand is for members, which make it. Well, honestly, your average member would get up and down from a bunker one time in 10, one time in 15, one time in 20, and normally that's because they've got a whole, a 10-footer.
Yeah.
But when the big boys have come to town, they've filled them right up. And I kind of like it because, the bunkers are raked they are literally perfect, aren't they? I mean, you played on the PGA Tour. I've never seen the way the caddies rake the bunkers and the way the courses are prepared. This seems to make it fair to me.
Yeah, well, you'd so often, if you're hitting into a green, you go, get in the bunker.
Yeah.
If you're going to miss the green, because you don't want to be in this thick rough, especially the US Open, US PGA, one of these events where they really grow that rough up around the green. The other thing about the golf course is they talk about this marine layer, which is basically a fog that comes in the morning.
Yeah.
And that will be the time for the good scoring because conditions will be a little softer, sun's not out, it won't be much wind, but in the afternoons what tends to happen is the sun comes out and it gets windy, and that's when it's going to be very tricky. So you'll see probably good scores in the morning rounds. I would think if this sort of marine layer is about that misty sort of feel, and then as the day goes on, you'll find, and the week goes on, I think on the weekend, especially late in the day, it's going to play firm and fast. And as Rory said, I mean, you saw the interview where he called it has a sandbelt feel to it, a bit of Seminole, bit of Shinnecock, it's a bit of a mixture of all these golf courses. It's so unique for a US Open.
Such a good mix as well when you're talking like that. Paul McGinley said it's like a sandbelt course. A number of players have said it is like a sandbelt golf course. Now, you would think that would give some Australian players a better look, but only if it really does play like a sandbelt golf course. And the great news is the forecast is absolutely perfect.
Right.
So only a 7-mile-an-hour wind, which is what is about 12. So a 12-mile-an-hour wind every single day, and no rain forecast.
Well, it's LA. It never rains, right?
So you know the USGA better than I know the USGA.
I do.
They're going to have those greens and fairways rock hard by the weekend.
They will. The fairways are generous, like very wide off the tee, and that suits a Cam Smith-style player, as we were talking about earlier. But those greens and the pin positions, the thing about these greens, you see these little areas, they're very large greens, but they're unusual shapes. There's no real rhyme or reason to them, and they go into these little sort of slivers, and there's these 7 or 8 yard spots where they can put these pins, and then if you go long or short, you're absolutely dead. And I mean, the par threes, there's 5 of them, and it's such a unique mix. There's 2 over 280 yards. Yeah. There's 1 at 125 yards, and as we said, it could play as little as 80 yards. Ricky Fowler said the other day, if I've got that shot to the front right pin, it's 80 yards, I'm going to lay up with a lob wedge. Yeah. Can you believe that? Yeah. Lay up with a lob wedge.
Out to the right.
Out to the right.
Out to the right. He's going to miss the green on purpose from 80 yards and putt up the hill.
And if you're in the lead coming down that final stretch and you've got to par the final 3 holes, guess what? You've got 3 brutal par 4s to finish. 542 yards 16th.
Yeah.
520 yards 17th.
Yeah.
And then almost, 492 the 18th. So if you can make 3 4s. Peter Thompson used to talk about that a lot of the time. He said, make sure you can par the last 4 holes of a golf course. Well, in this case, par the last 3. Those 3 4s, they'll do you a lot of good at the end of the week.
I heard Rory talking about that 15th hole, and it is a bit of a fascination for so many. And one of you might be thinking, why is he going to lay up? Well, the reasoning is if it's downwind and you hit it short, it's going to plug in because there's so much sand in the bunker in front. Yep. And they actually said that if you hit the lob wedge and it takes 1 bounce and lands in the back trap, because it's a lob wedge and it's still going to have a lot of spin on it, that one's going to plug as well. So if you misjudge your lob wedge to that particular pin, it'll either plug in the front trap perhaps or plug in the back trap, and there's no chance of actually... You're going to have to then aim away from that flag, that hole. You're going to have to go up the green, and then you've got a 2-putt from there.
I know. Yeah, I mean, that front right-hand pin, I hope they put it there a couple of days, because that's just going to, I think, set the golf world on fire. That'll be brilliant. But the other thing about the golf course, which won't be great for viewing, I think it's going to be slow. As far as the players, the rounds, they're talking 5.5, 6 hour rounds.
Why? Why is that?
Well, there are a lot of crossovers with some of these holes and things where the tees and the greens are next to each other. The other thing is when you've got par 3s at almost 300 yards, they're going to take a while. Yep. You've got a reachable par 4 in the 6th. The par 5s are reachable bar 1 unless they move the tee up a little bit. So you know what pace of play is like. And given how it's a unique course in the fact that they're saying, look, there'll probably be some 64s out there, but there also could be some 84s as well. If you're playing well, you can score around this golf course, but if your game's a little bit off, you're on the bogey train for a long time. So
So tell me this, with that in mind, and once we make the cut, I think it's the top 65 regular tour events, is it top 70 here? I'm not sure, it's going to be one or the other. You know it better than I do. If there's 10-minute intervals on round 1 and round 2, do they bump that out a little bit for round 3 and 4? I mean, they're going to be playing in 2s, hopefully, unless 90 people make the cut. So if they're playing in 2s on the weekend and they know that there is a chance of slow play, can they maybe put a starter's tee time here and there to spread the field out? Maybe have a starter's tee time, by the way, for people who don't know, they just leave a tee time blank. And they might, your British Open's used to anyway. They used to have 2 starters tee times throughout the day on a 1 tee start on rounds 1 and 2. Maybe they do a starter's tee time here or there and have 11-minute intervals or 12-minute intervals on the weekend. Because we don't want to see that. We don't want to see players waiting on tees. It's no good.
Well, the good thing about the weekends, and as to your point, hopefully they're in 2s, so that should speed up play rather than 3s. And you've got less players, obviously, and they'll just do the 1 tee start. Given it's a first and 10th tee start, the first 2 days, that's what also can slow things down in that regard.
And it's coming up to the longest day of the year up there at the Northern Hemisphere as well, so they've got plenty of daylight.
One last thing on sort of the golf course is I've noticed the 14th tee, the par 5, they've got these cameras set up like it's going to be like the Matrix. I saw a picture of it where they've got all these cameras around the tee. I'm going to be fascinated to watch the reviews of the golf swings they do, because there'll be slow-mo and all these different angles.
I love that. I love it.
It's so good.
And also, we saw at the USPGA, the earpods were in. So I imagine the USGA will follow suit. Now, you'd be going, well, if they're doing it in one major, why wouldn't they do it in the other? The reason is it's the PGA of America, so it's all the pros run the USPGA, and it's the amateur body that runs the USGA events or the US Opens. So do you think they will? I'm hopeful they will in rounds 1 and 2. It's funny, the player inside of me still says, leave them alone when they're trying to win the trophy. Just leave them alone and let them play. But in rounds 1 and 2, if you've got a player, for instance, playing the 15th or the short sixth hole, which is the drivable one.
That would be so good to hear.
If you've got a player on there and you've just watched him on the tee, have his hand on the driver, then it goes to the 3 or the 4 wood, and then it ends up going to a 5 or a 4 iron or something like that. And then he goes and hits the 4 iron, for instance. Then he puts the earbuds in, then you go, okay, we saw you with one hand go from the drive to a fairway wood to the iron. What were you thinking? Well, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, same here. But if they are doing that, they've got issues, because they should have made that decision before they get to the tee, that's for sure. But the PGA Championship, that worked out well because they had Michael Block on the weekend. So he wasn't, knew he wasn't going to win the tournament, but it was great exposure for him. Now, will you get some of the biggest players doing that? We'll see. We'll see. I know Rory did it at the PGA in the first round or the second round, or did he do it at the Masters as well? I think he did it at the Masters.
Did he do it at the Masters?
I believe so.
I didn't see that at the Masters. Well, it's fantastic if they're doing that sort of stuff. But again, hopefully they're doing it in rounds 1 and 2 and leave everybody alone on the weekend when they're really trying to get their name engraved on a magnificent sports trophy. That is the US Open. Let's talk about our picks, because that's really what we're all here to talk about and to listen to. I've got 3 in mind. I've got 2 that I think are really, really good things. And I've also got a roughie, but I want to start with you. Who's your number 1 pick to win this thing?
Yeah, I said earlier in the week, for me, Jordan Spieth, I really liked the way that he was shaping up. But the more I listen to and watch and sort of hear about Brooks Koepka, it's hard to go past that guy. Just his mentality in these types of major championships, and how I think tough the golf course will play on the weekend when par's going to be probably a good score. I mean, they're talking the winning score somewhere around 6 to 10 under, I would say. But that could go anywhere depending on how they set up the course and where the pins go. And when par's a good score, Brooks thrives. And as we know, he rises to the occasion for the majors. And in his mind, he's gaming for double digits. He's got 5. He's 1 short of his 6-pack, if you remember Bryson DeChambeau when they were going at it on social media. So he gets 1 more for the 6-pack, and then he's on his way to his 10th. So for me, Brooks Koepka is my number 1 pick at the moment, but I've got 3 like you. Who's yours?
Well, Brooks is in mine as well. It's hard to escape him, and I've got him at number 2 just because he's Brooks Koepka.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got him at number 2. But my number 1 is Scotty Scheffler. And I changed considerably.
He's my number 2.
He's your number 2. Okay.
We flipped.
So he changed considerably when I found out about what he did at the Memorial from tee to green. Now, for as long as they've been keeping shots gained stats, it's been, you see some of the best tee to green performances of a week. Now, to be plus 20 shots gained for the week, that gets you in the top 3. And Scotty Scheffler at the Memorial, his week at the Memorial from tee to green is the number 2 tee to green week ever seen on the PGA Tour. How he didn't win with his putting ability, nobody seems to understand. Now, he played great in the last round.
So I will tell you why he didn't win.
Yeah, go on.
It's because he was last in putting.
There you go. Okay.
It was a shocking week for him putting. It was like -8 on the greens or something like that.
And where did he finish, 2nd or 3rd?
Third. 1 out of the playoff. It was crazy. The other stat you'll love about Scheffler, he's had 2 wins this year. He's played 16, in his last 16 tournaments, has not finished outside the top 12.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about that.
It's ridiculous.
That's Tiger-esque.
So here's my thinking on Scheffler, and this is probably the reason that he's the favourite and not Brooks Koepka. If you have a week like that together from tee to green and you putt like Scotty Scheffler normally putts, I'm a big believer that no matter how damning the evidence, so for instance, you've come last at Memorial, great putters always believe They are great putters.
For sure.
It is just in their head.
Yep.
All right, so they've had a bad week. He won't even care. He'll just go to he had the next week off, and I would be staggered, probably like you, that he hasn't sorted his putting out.
You're right about the great putter mentality. I've heard he's not even talking about his putting, and that's the thing. Someone mentioned it the other day. It might have been Brandel Chambly or someone like that, where they said putting is like having a ghost. You don't talk about it because if you do, that they come and haunt you.
Yeah,
so
it's very good.
Best to leave it alone. You do not talk about your putting.
That's right.
When you're putting great, you don't say you're putting great because if you do that, you're going to start putting poorly. And if you're putting poorly, you're not going to start putting great. It's just going to keep getting worse.
That's exactly right.
And the best putters in the world, I mean, I might have told this story a while ago, but Brad Faxon, I've played with him a few times over the years, and I remember him having a round where he had 35 putts or something like that in a round of golf, which is not great for Brad.
Not great for anyone.
Yeah, someone said to him afterwards, look, it's a shame you putted so poorly. He says, what do you mean? I putted fantastic. The ball just didn't go in today. Now, that's the sort of mentality you have to have. And if Scheffler, the thing with Scheffler, his tee to green game, if he just keeps doing that, he only has to putt average. Yes. He doesn't even have to putt well to win this golf tournament.
Yeah, and to win by some margin, I would imagine. Because I just don't see, even though Brooks is a magnificent tee to green man, I don't see him matching Scotty Scheffler if they're both putting their best. Or even, here's a bit right. If Scotty Scheffler putts average and so does Brooks, then I think Scotty wins by 10.
Scheffler has the advantage.
Yeah, he wins by 10. Now, my roughie, have you got a roughie as well?
I have got a bit of a roughie, yeah.
Okay. Well, it better not be Justin Rose.
No, he's not a roughie. He's a former US Open champion.
Yeah, I know, but I looked at the odds at the start of the week.
Yeah.
He's paying $51.
Oh, you got on that, obviously.
So, I did.
Oh, well done.
I did. So, he's the only person I've put any money on this week, and it's purely because he's so far above the odds.
Yeah.
I would have Justin Rose, just watching what he's been doing, knowing how well he plays hard and fast golf with his background coming from Britain, his love of sandbelt golf courses as well. But I've been watching him swing. He's swinging that well. And I don't think he's finished out of the top 20 or something crazy like that in the last 5, 6, 7 weeks, something like that. And he's building. I can just feel it. So when I saw him at $51, and I'm thinking he should be probably about 17 or 18, something like that. I just thought it was too good to pass up because
I've got to throw a few shekels on that.
Absolutely. Anyway, I'll buy. Actually, if he gets up, I'll buy you a drink.
Yeah.
I'll buy you lemon squash.
Oh, thank you. That'd be nice. Or a glass of Pinot would be good as well.
So who's your roughie?
My roughie, and well, could you call him a roughie because he's one of the best players? Tyrrell Hatton.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm going to say Tyrrell Hatton because
he almost won last week as well. He was looking good.
Final round 62. That's an incredible effort. So you're going in with good form. He didn't have a great Saturday, but the thing with Tyrrell I'm a little worried about is you never know what the head's going to do. But he's always around there, though. One of the best ball strikers in the world, really good with his wedges and can putt the lights out when he can get it going. So he's a little bit of a roughie, you could say that, but he's probably still
up there,
20, in the low 20s to 1 or something like that, I would imagine. So. So there's 3 in that regard. And then the thing is we've also got a lot of other players around. Like we haven't even spoken about Rahm or McIlroy. Cantlay's a local. Morikawa's a local.
Xander.
Jordan Spieth. And,
Did you say Max Homer? So there's a few Californians,
he holds the course record, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's right. He shot a 61 and Cantlay, I believe, shot a 62. So they were the course record holders. And I reckon, was it Cantlay or Max or no? It was Scotty Scheffler. Scotty Scheffler. This is the other reason. Scotty Scheffler played a Walker Cup there,
2017. Yeah,
thank you, and did quite well and enjoyed the golf course.
Yep.
So there's a lot to like about Scotty Scheffler.
I think it's one of those courses you need a bit of local knowledge too, with the greens and where to miss and where not to miss and things like that. So it's going to be fascinating in that regard. But
let's have a look at our Aussies.
I was going to say. Yeah, well,
you start off. Who have you got on top of the list?
Well,
so why don't we do this? Let's have a what's a pass mark and what's a win for each player.
Okay,
all right.
I was really tempted to put Cam Smith in there in my top 3 that we just spoke about earlier as my 3 picks. But
why is that?
Well, the golf course is not your typical US Open course as we've spoken about. It's not tight, rough everywhere. It's certainly very open off the tee. It favours a draw shape, which is his natural shape off the tee. And some people are saying Rory's, that's in his favour as well. you're going to need an amazing short game and wedge game around this golf course, and be a great putter. All these things just line up perfectly for Smithy. His best result was in 2015, where he finished tied for fourth, but it's a bit hard to know what his form's like. Obviously, when playing the Live Tour, you don't quite know how they're going there. But I think he shot 62 in his last round there, and has had a week or two off now, and is refreshed and ready to go. And
got there early, I believe, as well, just for a good look around the golf course. So he'll know what he's going to do. You would think, all things being equal, that Pinehurst or this joint is where he's most likely going to win his US Open, if he's got one in his future. So, look, a pass mark for someone like Cameron Smith's top 20. And a win is a win for Cameron Smith. Yeah, a win is a win, as you say. I think if he finishes outside the top 10, he'll be a bit disappointed, for sure. Who's next on your list? Adam Scott. Righto, this is interesting. It could have been Jason Day, but I'm going with Adam Scott. Reason being, he's just, I was looking up a few stats earlier, and he's, the driving distance is obviously there, given, he's in his 40s now, but he's, and this is an interesting one, he's 32 in strokes gained putting, so he's putting a lot better than people think. Yeah. Putting a lot better than people think. I think he's number one on tour from 10 to 15 feet as well, by the way. Yep. He's in top 20 sand saves, which is a little surprising, because we all think about Scotty as the ball striker, but he's had 3 top 10s in his last 4 starts. And the other thing is he loves LA because he's a 2-time winner at Riviera. So, I mean, for him, what's a pass mark there again? I think for Scotty, the way he's playing, that top 20 you're saying, top 15. Yep. And again, he's after a win. It's all about the majors in this. Yeah, well, I think the golf course really suits him. So I'm going to say pass marks top 15, a little bit better than Cameron Smith, and a win is a win. There's not too many majors left for Adam Scott, you would think. But, if Phil Mickelson's winning majors at the age of 51 or 52, then maybe Scotty can keep on winning them until 45, 46. Well, this is his 22nd US Open, by the way, so he's played in a few. Okay. So who you got next? It's got to be Jason Day. What is he ranked now? 23 in the world. He's been runner-up here a couple of times at the US Open. This is his 11th time. We know how well he's been playing since the end of last year. I just hope he got there and prepared. Had a few practice rounds. Yeah, because as we know at the PGA Championship, he didn't even see the golf course. He just left it up to his caddy. Oh, dear. That's the way. So, why not? Just rock up on the first and where do I go? Yeah, that's it. Oh, dear. Yeah. Righto, so a bit the same with Jason. He's been playing well enough. If he putts well, I think he'll play well this week. Yep. Top 20 is a pass mark. And again, I think a win is a win. A win, exactly. Yep. And then next, Cameron Davis. This is his debut in the US Open. That's surprised. Is that right? That surprised me, to be honest. Although he's 68 in the world, so he's got to be that top 50. So he hasn't quite, been around that top 50 for very long these days. He's got all the tools, doesn't he? This boy. He does. He's, he had a really good result at the PGA Championship. Played very, very nicely there, and it just comes down to experience and how comfortable do you feel in those situations for him. I think. A pass mark is probably top 30, something like that. And top 5? I think a top 5 is exactly what I was thinking as a win. One of the great things he's got is he's got a young man on his bag called Andrew Shuden. And I love Andrew Shuden as a caddy. He's a good bloke. There's quite a height difference between them. Yes, there is. Can't you? He had a great swing, Andrew Shuden, and played quite well in Victoria in some of our bigger tournaments. He went to Blackburn Tech. We didn't know, but we went to the same school, at the same time, Andrew Shuden and I, at Blackburn Tech. But I think he's a real weapon to have. I think he gets hard and fast golf. He played a lot of golf, like I said, in the Sandbelt as a kid growing up. And I think he's just a wonderful person that Cam Davis has got working for him. I have a feeling he's probably walked that course about a dozen times already, getting all the information necessary. Who's next? Next on the list, Lucas Herbert. It's an interesting one. He is. Yeah, again, one of the best putters in the world. I couldn't believe he didn't play the President's Cup and he didn't get a pick there. But he's played a few US Opens. Tied 31st was his best a few years ago. But again, with Lucas, it's a little streaky, so you're never quite sure. There is width off the tee, which will suit him down to the ground. He does love to come into the ball pretty steep and create a lot of spin, which can help on these firmer greens on the weekend, I think. And out of the US Open rough, got an 8-iron or a 9-iron out of that US Open rough. He's got the swing to do it. You've got to come in steep and hang on for dear life. So pass mark, I'm thinking probably top 30 again. Perfect. And then, top 10, I think it'd be an excellent result for Lucas. And a step in the right direction. Great for his confidence, and then who knows later in the year and the rest of his career.
Exactly. Min Woo Lee, next up. What did he finish? Tied 27th last year at Brookline. So that was a good solid event for him, top 30.
Yeah, and had a good week at the PGA. Even though these courses are going to play differently, it's still... it's still very much major golf. So he probably feels like one of the boys these days, that he can compete.
Confidence is growing. He just needs to get a bit more consistency in the PGA Tour in the US. He's just a few too many miscuts and things like that. He's a bit streakier. If he could have that sort of consistency of his sister, that would obviously help. But that's what separates him as far as he's just an incredible athlete and talent at the same time. So, again, he's a little bit like Lucas in that regard. I'm not quite sure how he's going to fare this week, and a lot will depend on his putting. Similar sort of thing to Lucas, I'd say, a top 30.
A top 30. I agree with that. Now, I'm going to ask you this question. Let's say he's in it with 9 holes to play. Has he got the strength of mind to win this thing? Because I think he does.
Yes. No, I think he does as well. We saw him in the Players' Championship with that lead, remember?
Yep.
And he sort of really struggled, but then he knuckled down and he gritted out, and it was actually a really solid round of golf.
Well, I was going to say, you learn a lot from those last groupings failures. You learn a lot about yourself. Yep. And he picked himself up off the canvas pretty quickly after the Players' Championship and got back into it. So it didn't hurt him, and I'm only assuming that he's learnt plenty.
I think so as well. But I'm going more top 5 for him rather than top 10. He's up there.
And we got one more.
We got one more. The amateur Carl Phillips, the Stanford college player. I mean, he was the only Aussie to get one of the 45 spots on offer in the qualifying. I mean, how good is that? Co-medalist at his course in Maryland.
Yeah.
A pass mark is just making the US Open, right?
Yeah, so he's already passed.
He's already passed. And then what do you think for a win?
If you make the cut as an amateur in your first ever major, you should be doing cartwheels all the way back to Stanford, honestly.
Brilliant. So brilliant. No, it's going to be so much fun for him. And he's 21 years old and he's playing his first major. How good.
First time I saw Carl Phillips, he was playing pennant here in Melbourne when he was about 11 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was footage of him, and he took someone down. He had a win. I think he was a member at Commonwealth.
Okay.
It's a long time ago, so I'm guessing again. But he played number 7 in senior pennant and had a win, and there was video of it.
As an 11-year-old.
As an 11-year-old. There was video of it. And then I'm pretty sure he went on to win the big one at Torrey Pines, didn't he? I think he did. I think he won the World Championship. Look, if I'm wrong, I apologise now, but I'm pretty sure he won that. With names like Jason Day won it, and some of the big names.
He's been one
golf.
of the best amateur golfers in the world, for sure. So,
anyway, great to see him playing as well. Well, I don't care what happens. I reckon the one thing you and I are both going to do after this week is try and get a game at LA Country Club next time we're over there, because
absolutely.
I think the course is going to be a big winner. Okie doke. That'll do us. Now, I'm doing a masterclass because you did it last time.
Oh, you're going to do a bonus?
I'm going to do a bonus masterclass.
Love it.
And even though we've just been speaking about, did we speak about it? That shots gained approach is the stat to actually win US Opens?
Yes, that's correct.
So you would think, they showed something on the Golf Channel just the other day, and it wasn't tee to green that wins you a US Open. It wasn't putting that wins you a US Open, and it wasn't driving that wins you a US Open. It is approach. So the players are hit the best approaches.
So what sort of distances are you talking about here?
Just any kind of approach.
Into a green.
So it's been tied 4th.
Wow.
So they've gone back since strokes gained's been available in US Opens, and strokes gained approach is the lowest one. So most champions have been tied 4th. So even though that's the case, I was the worst approach player in the history of professional golf.
Is that why I never won a US Open?
That's exactly why I didn't win probably anything. But what I'm going to do, pressure putting. I mean, to me in the majors, those short putts are the key, and I'm going to do a masterclass on pressure short putting.
I love that. Yeah, no, very, very good.
And I'll just give a little teaser. If you've got a fat guts, this is really going to help you. If you've got a little tummy, this one's going to help you.
Okay. Oh, I can't wait to see. I'm working on a little.
Mate. The diets that you're on, you'll never get a big tummy.
Oh, I forgot to mention one last thing.
Yeah.
Watch out for. He's not an Australian, but I got a real soft spot for Austin Truslow, who's playing an American.
Oh, this is the one-handed chipper.
One-handed chipping guy. I worked with him when I was in the US, and I've kept in touch. And he qualified for his first major.
I can't wait.
Great to see him. So if you see someone chipping one-handed, just keep an eye out. He's fascinating.
Well, look, if he's chipping one-handed, I guarantee he'll get on the coverage.
He sent me a picture the other day. He sent me a picture of him standing next to Scotty Scheffler
at
a junior tournament.
Yeah.
Austin was first, Scotty was second.
Oh, boy, we've got to put that out on the socials as well. So when this is out, make sure you tag it in. We'll talk to you next time.
From the Australian Golf Centre, home of the PGA of Australia and Golf Australia, this has been a bonus episode of Talk Birdie To Me with Nick O'Hearn and Mark Allen. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and TikTok. And if you can share the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, that'd be awesome. Talk Birdie To Me's executive producer is Dan Bradley at Kaizen Media. Sound design by Daryl Misson at loudzebra.com.